What if I told you that behind prison walls, where hope seems impossible, miracles still happen? Today I want to share with you a story that will challenge everything you think you know about redemption, family, and the power of faith. This is about Michael Rodriguez, a man who lost everything, his freedom, his family, his dignity, but found something far more powerful in the darkness of his cell. Picture this, a father of 3, watching through reinforced glass as his children grow up without him. His wife's tears have dried up, replaced by the cold reality of single parenthood. His mother won't even take his calls anymore. This was Michael's reality 5 years ago, serving time for armed robbery, convinced his life was over at 32. But what happened next defies every statistic about recidivism and broken families. In a place designed to punish, Michael discovered something that would transform not just his life, but the lives of everyone who had given up on him. Let me take you inside cell block D, where Michael spent his first year consumed by anger and regret. The nights were the hardest, lying on a thin mattress, staring at concrete walls, replaying the moment everything went wrong. He had robbed a convenience store to pay for his daughter's medical bills, a desperate act that landed him 7 years behind bars. His wife, Sandra, filed for divorce after 2 years. His children, Emma, Carlos, and little Sophia, stopped asking when Daddy was coming home. Michael tells me he hit rock bottom on a Tuesday in March. He'd just received a letter from his eldest daughter, Emma, now 16, telling him she was embarrassed to have his last name. She was changing it legally. That night, alone in his cell, Michael made a decision that seemed impossible for a man who had lost faith in everything. He got on his knees and prayed. Not the desperate bargaining kind of prayer, but a complete surrender. "God," he whispered, "I can't fix this. I can't undo what I've done. But if you're real, if you're listening, please don't let my children suffer for my mistakes." What happened over the next 3 years reads like something out of a movie, but I've seen the documentation, talked to the witnesses, and met the family myself. Michael began waking up at 4 a.m. every morning for prayer and meditation. He enrolled in every rehabilitation program the prison offered: anger management, addiction counseling, parenting classes, even though his children wouldn't speak to him. Other inmates thought he'd lost his mind, but Michael was experiencing something profound. He was changing from the inside out. The first sign that something extraordinary was happening came 18 months later. Sandra received a letter unlike any Michael had ever written. Instead of apologies and promises, it was filled with gratitude. Gratitude for the years they'd had together, for the beautiful children she was raising alone, for her strength in protecting them from his failures. He asked for nothing, demanded nothing, simply acknowledged the pain he'd caused and expressed his commitment to becoming the man they deserved, whether they ever forgave him or not. Sandra later told me she read that letter 15 times. For the first time in 3 years, she saw glimpses of the man she'd fallen in love with, but deeper, more mature. Still, she threw the letter away. But something made her dig it out of the trash that night. She kept it on her nightstand for weeks. Meanwhile, Michael's transformation was becoming visible to everyone around him. He started mediating conflicts between inmates, helped illiterate prisoners write letters to their families, and created a support group for fathers separated from their children. The prison chaplain, Father Martinez, later said he'd never seen such a complete personality transformation in 30 years of ministry. Michael wasn't just serving his time, he was using his time to serve others. The breakthrough came during Michael's 4th year. His youngest daughter, Sophia, now 8 years old, was struggling in school and acting out at home. During a particularly difficult parent-teacher conference, Sophia's teacher mentioned that many children in similar situations benefit from having some form of connection with their absent parent, even if supervised. Sandra resisted for months, but watching her daughter's pain finally convinced her to arrange one phone call. That 15-minute conversation changed everything. Sophia had prepared a list of questions about why Daddy went away and when he was coming back, but instead of the broken man she might have expected, she encountered a father who spoke to her with patience, wisdom, and unconditional love. He didn't make excuses or promises he couldn't keep. Instead, he listened to her feelings, validated her anger, and assured her that his mistakes had nothing to do with how much he loved her. By the end of the call, Sophia was asking when she could talk to Daddy again. The healing process wasn't linear or easy. It took 6 more months of weekly phone calls before Sandra agreed to a supervised visit. Michael had been incarcerated for 4.5 years when he saw his children face to face again. Emma, now 18, was cold and distant. Carlos, 16, could barely look at him. But Sophia ran straight into his arms, and for the first time since his sentencing, Michael wept openly. What happened during that visit stunned everyone present, including the corrections officers. Instead of trying to justify his actions or minimize their impact, Michael took full responsibility for the pain he'd caused each of his children. He acknowledged Emma's anger as completely justified, validated Carlos's disappointment, and promised Sophia that even though he couldn't come home yet, he would never stop working to become worthy of their love. The visit was supposed to last 1 hour. The supervising officer extended it to 3. Over the following months, something miraculous began to unfold. Emma started asking Sandra questions about her father's childhood, trying to understand the man behind the mistakes. Carlos began writing letters, initially angry and accusatory, but gradually becoming more vulnerable and honest. Sandra found herself looking forward to Michael's calls, rediscovering the deep conversations that had first drawn them together. They began discussing co-parenting strategies, their children's futures, and slowly, carefully, the possibility of rebuilding their family. The most extraordinary part of this story happened 6 months before Michael's release. His family wasn't just waiting for him anymore, they were actively preparing for his return. Sandra had started attending family therapy sessions with the children to work through years of hurt and abandonment. Emma was researching colleges near the halfway house where Michael would initially live. Carlos had written a letter expressing his desire to rebuild their relationship, and Sophia had created a countdown calendar, marking off days until Daddy could come home. Michael was released after serving 5.5 years, but the man who walked out of those prison gates bore little resemblance to the desperate, angry criminal who had entered. His family was waiting for him. Not the broken, resentful family he'd left behind, but a stronger, more unified family that had learned to communicate, forgive, and love through the most impossible circumstances. Today, Michael works as a counselor for at-risk youth, helping young men avoid the path that once led him to prison. Sandra says their marriage is stronger now than it was before his incarceration. Emma graduated valedictorian and credits her father's transformation with teaching her about redemption and second chances. Carlos plays football and says his dad is his biggest inspiration, and Sophia, now 10, tells everyone about how prayer brought her daddy home. I know this story might sound too good to be true. In a world where we're constantly told that people don't change, that broken families can't heal, that some mistakes are unforgivable, Michael's story stands as powerful evidence to the contrary. But here's what makes it even more remarkable. This isn't an isolated incident. Prison chaplains and family counselors across the country report similar transformations when genuine faith, sustained effort, and forgiveness intersect. The miracle wasn't just that Michael changed. It's that his entire family chose to believe that change was possible. They chose hope over bitterness, love over resentment, and unity over separation. They chose to believe that prayer, when combined with authentic action and accountability, can indeed move mountains, even mountains of hurt, disappointment, and broken trust. So what can we learn from Michael's extraordinary journey? First, That transformation is possible at any stage of life, under any circumstances, if we're willing to surrender our pride and do the hard work of change. Second, that forgiveness is not just about forgetting the past, it's about choosing to believe in a better future. And finally, that sometimes our greatest failures can become the foundation for our most meaningful victories. If you're facing what seems like an impossible situation in your own family, if you've made mistakes that feel unforgivable, or if you've been hurt so deeply that healing seems impossible, Michael's story offers hope. Not easy answers, but real hope based on the miraculous power of faith, authentic change, and unconditional love. What's your story of redemption or forgiveness? Have you witnessed the power of prayer in your own life or family? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this story touched your heart, please subscribe and hit that notification bell, because every week we share real stories of hope, transformation, and miracles that prove love always wins. Thank you for watching, and remember, it's never too late for a miracle.